Who are the most and least athletic players on the Buffalo Bills? We're going to rank them all today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, or if you're joining us on the YouTube channel, your first watch every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off a purchase of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. Use code LOCKEDON at checkout. I am excited for today's conversation, and I feel like I say that every single day because I love talking about this football team, and anytime I get a chance to push record and talk about the Buffalo Bills, I am excited about it. But this is something that we did last year during the offseason, and it'll be a staple of our off-seasons every year because it's a really good topic, at least in my opinion. And what we're going to do is go through and rank all of the Bills players, every single player on the roster, in terms of their athletic ability. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to measure this? We're going to use RAS, which is short for Relative Athletic Score. So what is RAS, or a Relative Athletic Score? It was developed by Kent Lee Platte, who you can follow on Twitter using the handle @MathBomb. And there's a good chance if you're on Twitter, you've seen his work and you're familiar with the RAS charts that make their way around the timeline. And so what is it? As defined by Kent, it is a player's RAS score is a metric that compares the player's athletic testing to that player's position group from 1987 until the player's draft year. These individual grades are compiled into a final composite score that gives a general idea of how athletic a player is compared to their peers on an intuitive 0 to 10 scale. And so what Kent has done is went through all of the athletic testing since 1987 for every football player that he has verifiable athletic testing on. And he factors in their size and their timed athleticism, and it gives him a score on a 0 to 10 scale that rates their athleticism. And what I really like about RAS is that it is cognizant of size. And so if you are 300 pounds and you run a 4.9 40-yard dash, that is weighted very differently than if you are 250 pounds and run a 4.9 40-yard dash. And the same can be applied to all of the different athletic tests. It is relative to your size and your position. And so this to me is just a really good way to do this. I'm really comfortable with how Kent goes through and comes up with these scores. And I have the RAS scores for every player on the Bills. Well, almost every player. Of the 90 players on the roster, we have RAS scores for 82 of them. 82 out of 90. So we're almost at 100%. And the players that we are missing because they don't have verifiable pro day or combine numbers are kicker Tyler Bass, CJ Brewer, Reed Ferguson, Reggie Gilliam, Matt Hawk, Josh Thomas, and Greg Manns. Every other player we have an RAS score for. And so we're going to break this conversation up into three different talking points. The first talking point will be the top 10 most athletic players on the team. Then we'll look at the 10 least athletic players on the team. And then we'll close it out, and I'll give you 1 through 82 in terms of their RAS score. And so it's not just the top 10 and the bottom 10. You can see where everyone else in between falls. And so hopefully you find this pretty interesting. And part of what I'm going to do here, especially in the top 10 most athletic and in least athletic, I want to talk about why their athleticism helps them or it hurts them and why that athleticism matters. So there will be another layer to our discussion. I'm not just going to dump a bunch of data on a podcast. You know, I like to give you the analysis to go with the data. And so I will weave that in as best I can. All right, so I think I've set this thing up enough. Let's talk about the 10 most athletic players on the Buffalo Bills roster right now. At number 10, Ryan Bates, offensive lineman. He has an elite score of 9.53. And Ryan Bates, a player at college, right? In the college level, he played left tackle for Penn State. And if you go back and read my scouting report on Bates, I said, I like this player. I like how he moves, but I don't think he has the width to play tackle in the NFL. And sure enough, he's a guy that is a starting guard for the Bills and is really viewed as an interior type player. But Ryan Bates' ability to move, his athleticism really shows up in how he pass blocks, how he climbs to the second level as a run blocker, and his overall range as a run blocker. And as we anticipate a move to a more zone-based running scheme, Ryan Bates is a great fit. And he's one of the most athletic players on this football team. And perhaps that's why he stuck around for as long as he did. It's not just that he was a versatile depth player, but this guy has a lot of physical tools. And obviously we saw that manifested in the way he played at the end of last season. And we're excited about what Ryan Bates can do for this offensive line moving forward. At number 9, another offensive lineman, the Bills starting center, Mitch Morse, an elite RAS score of 9.55. And the reason Mitch Morse's athleticism matters is just like what I said about Ryan Bates. It's the range as a run blocker. It's how he can get out on some longer pulls. And it's also the mobility to mirror pass rushers, right? Both Bates and Morse are really, really good pass blockers. And so that athleticism allows them to frame up blocks against really twitchy interior rushers at the NFL level. So you're talking about a couple of guys here in Morse and Bates that are elite athletes that are going to be starters for this group for, I would guess, at least the next 2 to 3 seasons together. So Bates 10, Morse 9. At number 8 is Brandon Bryant, defensive tackle, an elite score of 9.58. And, Brandon Bryant's a player that has been tenured in the NFL for probably longer than you think. I know he hasn't played a ton. He's gotten on the field a little bit for the Bills, kind of a practice squad call-up guy. But I think the reason you see teams stick with him and why Brandon Bryant's gotten as much opportunity as he has in the NFL is because this is an elite caliber athlete. And so I expect Brandon Bryant to once again compete and find himself on the practice squad and perhaps get called up a few times during the season. But Brandon Bryant, kind of a practice squad guy. The rest are players we anticipate being rostered. But Brandon Bryant is a very toolsy depth player. At number 7, Josh Allen, quarterback, an elite RAS score of a 9.67. And I don't need to sit here and tell you all about Josh Allen and why his athleticism matters. You can watch one game of Josh Allen and realize that he's a different type of dude out on the field. But what I do want to take this opportunity to say about Josh Allen and his athleticism is that I don't think his timed athleticism at the combine is reflective of the type of athlete that he is. I mean, watch him run the 40-yard dash. There is nothing technically refined about Josh Allen's technique running that 40-yard dash. He looks bad running it. He has a decent time. And in fact, look, his size and athleticism leads to this elite RAS score. But I think he's an even better athlete than he showed because I don't think he trained to be able to do those specific drills. And you can improve your times just by learning different techniques. And so Josh Allen, when you watch him test, there's nothing correct about the way he runs. But watch this guy on the field and you know that this is one of the best athletes and physical talents to ever play the position in NFL history. At number 6, Tremaine Edmonds, Bills linebacker, an elite RAS score of 9.68. Tremaine is a really gifted athlete. Size, athleticism. This guy can run. He can cover ground. Some of my favorite reps of Tremaine Edmonds are in pass coverage where he is threatening and mugging up in the A-gaps, and then he will pedal and get depth on a coverage drop and take away a throw that quarterback had no idea anybody would be into that throwing lane because he has that type of change of direction skills and that ability to move in all directions rapidly. I mean, this guy is a physical specimen. He can cover ground, and his range in coverage and what he's asked to do in coverage is really, really special. He doesn't make every play you want him to as a run defender, and you wish he played a little bit faster attacking downhill. But this dude's range and his ability in coverage is really special, and it's because he's an elite caliber athlete with 35-inch arms. Ton of length and size and athleticism in the middle of your defense. That opens up so much for what you can do with your coverage spacing. At number 5, a new addition to the team this year, O.J. Howard, tight end, an elite RAS score of 9.8. O.J. Howard's a special athlete. Coming out of Alabama, the dude can block, but it was those flashes as a pass catcher that got you really excited about O.J. Howard. I had him very high on my board the year that he came out. Positional value pushed him down a little bit, but this guy is a very gifted athlete. I've had a chance to interview O.J. Howard and be next to him in person. He's built different. He is one of those guys that is just simply built different. And so we'll see if he can find some consistency this year for the Bills, but I'm very excited about him as a backup tight end and what he can do, kind of challenging some of that vertical spacing, what he can do after the catch, and just add another dimension to this Bills offense. At number 4, defensive tackle Ed Oliver, an elite RAS score of a 9.89. You guys have watched Ed Oliver get off the ball. You've seen him chase guys down. You've seen the change of direction. This guy is an explosive athlete, a top 10 pick for a reason. And we saw him really have his best season last year, and I think he's going to build upon that this year. And a lot of that is because not only did he come from playing a nose tackle in an odd front defense at Houston and, adjusting to a penetration style role as a 3-tech for the Bills, but also the athleticism that exists with that and playing next to some guys like Von Miller and Greg Rousseau, better defensive tackles around him, more depth at defensive end. I think Ed Oliver is going to go off this year. At number 3, Tommy Doyle. That's right, Tommy Doyle, offensive lineman, 9.89 elite RAS score. Tommy Doyle is big, and my gosh, does this guy have crazy athleticism. Now, he's a player that you watch him at Miami of Ohio, and even last year in the preseason when we got to see some Tommy Doyle, he's a guy that's still developing his technique and his ability to stay square and just footwork, handwork, bend, all that stuff. But in terms of size and athleticism, this dude has it all. And where I get excited about Tommy Doyle is not only as a developmental offensive lineman that I think can play a lot of different positions for you, and we're seeing the Bills use him at guard already this offseason, but as that utility blocker. You can use this guy as your big tight end, right? Your jumbo tight end. And you saw that last year, right? This guy caught a touchdown pass in the playoffs. So as a blocker in that role, but also that athleticism that goes with his ability to block. Really nice utility player and potentially a guy that eventually claims a big role for this team. Why can't he be the guy that fills in for Roger Saffold after this season? I'm not dismissing that. At number 2, Von Miller. Bills defensive end, elite RAS score of a 9.95. Von Miller is one of those dudes. In any draft that Von Miller is available, he's a top 3 pick. One of those special top of the first round edge rushers. In that Khalil Mack, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Von Miller role, right? He's that dude. He's a special athlete. And he is explosive off the snap. He's got rare flexibility and change of direction skills. He's got good power. He's just a stud, and his career speaks for itself. And then at number 1, this guy is always going to be the best athlete on the team as long as he's on the team. That's Spencer Brown, offensive tackle. An elite, not just an elite score, a perfect RAS score of 10. And I think you guys can tell just by the way I talk about Spencer Brown that I'm really excited about him. But as a draft guy at my core, which you all know, I love the size, the length, the athleticism, the upside that exists with a guy like Spencer Brown, and he is a perfect athlete. Spencer Brown is not only the best athlete on the Buffalo Bills, but he's one of the best athletes in the league. And so when you think about Aaron Kromer coaching this guy up, I think the Bills could have a really special right tackle in Spencer Brown, because there is nothing this man cannot do on the football field. He is an elite physical talent. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. You can build the engagement ring of her dreams. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting. And Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring, each ring one of a kind. Or maybe you just want to celebrate life's special moments with fine jewelry. They've got it all. And if you're having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. And this podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So that was the fun part. We talked about the most athletic players on the Buffalo Bills. Now we're going to talk about the 10 least athletic players in the Buffalo Bills. And some of these are names that won't be around. They won't make the team, and we won't spend a lot of time on them. But there's some guys that are pretty prominent players and even some new additions to the team that maybe you'll be surprised are on here. And I want to talk about why they're able to be good players despite not necessarily having top-tier athleticism or even close to it. You know, I talked about this being a 0 to 10 score, and within that, there's tiers. So 9+ is an elite RAS score, 8+ is great, 6+ is good, 4.5+ is okay, 2.5+ is poor, and under 2.5 is very poor. All the players in the top 10 are elite, and the Bills have a total of 19 players on their roster in the elite category. Well, all of the players in this bottom 10 are either very poor or poor. So let's dig into them and let's talk about why these players are on this list. So the number 10 least athletic player on the Bills is Elijah Griffin. Cornerback, second-year player, decent player at USC, but a 2.76 RAS score. I mean, the guy is small and not athletic. And so while there's some level of reason to be intrigued by Elijah Griffin, small and slow doesn't typically cut it in the NFL. And number 9, Malik Williams, wide receiver, UDFA, very poor score of 2.41. At number 8, Bobby Hart, offensive tackle, very poor score of 2.24. Bobby Hart has really overachieved. I mean, this guy doesn't have good athleticism. He doesn't have good tape, but he keeps getting opportunities. He started a lot of games, and he's done so with very below average athleticism. At number 7, Devin Singletary, running back, very poor RAS score of 1.77. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about Devin Singletary. I mean, the guy is exactly what we talked about with Elijah Griffin. He's small and he's slow. 5'7", 203, 4.66 40-yard dash. You just expect more athleticism for a guy that is 203, kind of a compact build. Only a 7.32 3-cone drill, 4.4 20-yard shuttle. You just expect more. He should be able to move better for a guy of his size. Now, he's shifty and he can make dynamic cuts, but he's just not explosive. He's not moving very fast. He doesn't have speed to the perimeter. He doesn't have short area quickness either. And so I think Devin Singletary has done well for himself given some of his physical limitations, but those limitations are there, and I think that's why we're all very excited about James Cook and that dynamic that he can add to this Bills offense. So he is at number 7. At number 6, another potentially prominent player for this Bills offense, it's wide receiver Jamison Crowder, a very poor RAS score of a 1.73. And Jamison Crowder is a baller. He's technically refined. He runs good routes. He's got great hands, but he's 5'8", 185, 30-inch arms, ran a 4.56 40-yard dash with a 1.71 10-yard split. That's a terrible 10-yard split. Very modest 3-cone and short shuttles. Jumps were not that good. He had a 37-inch vertical jump, but only a 115-inch broad jump. So he's a baller. He can play. He can run routes. He can catch a football. But Jamison Crowder's on the smaller side. Again, 5'8", 185, and he's not super explosive. When you're small and not explosive, you're going to have a bad RAS score. At number 5, Trayvon Fuller, cornerback, very poor score of a 1.17. At number 4, we'll talk about this player a little bit more. Tim Settle, defensive tackle, very poor score of a 1.12. Now, Tim Settle is a player that has transformed his body, so that's led to more athleticism, but he's 330 pounds and ran a 5.22 with a 25.5-inch vertical jump, a 99-inch broad jump, 4.83 20-yard short shuttle. Those are bad times. So when you're 330 pounds and you're just this level of testing where you're pretty much in the 25th percentile or lower on all of your athletic tests, that's not going to lead to a good RAS score. But Tim Settle's kind of in that 300, 305-pound range now, and that's come with more athleticism. So I'm excited about Tim Settle, but what makes me more excited about Tim Settle is the body transformation and what we've seen from him in Washington over the last couple of seasons. At number 3, Daniel Joseph, defensive end, a UDFA, NC State, if I'm not mistaken, 1.08, very poor score. Alec Anderson, an offensive lineman, UDFA out of UCLA, 1.04, very poor. And then another UDFA, the least athletic player on the team, is tight end Jalen Weidermeyer, UDFA out of Texas A&M. You know, Weidermeyer had some decent production in the SEC, but my goodness, is this guy just a very poor athlete. He just does not move well at all. That's why he didn't get drafted. And, you know, maybe he can be a depth player in time, practice squad type guy, but athletically, this guy is just extremely limited. So your 10 least athletic players on the Bills, 10-1, Elijah Griffin, Malik Williams, Bobby Hart, Devin Singletary, Jamison Crowder, Trayvon Fuller, Tim Settle, Daniel Joseph, Alec Anderson, and Jalen Weidermeyer. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. It's BetOnline, and it's where the game starts. So we talked about the 10 most athletic players on the team. We talked about the 10 least athletic players on the team. What about everything in between? Like I said, I have 82 players here with an RAS score, and I have them in order, top to bottom. And so this last segment is not going to be super insightful, but I think it will be insightful, but I'm going to give you the names in order. I'm going to tell you what caliber of athlete they are. And so you can see where Stefan Diggs and Matt Milano and Greg Rousseau and Trey White and all these other players slot within the overall landscape of athleticism in this team. So I do apologize for reading a list to you, but I want to kind of fill in the gaps and you know, I don't want to just talk about 20 of the 82 players. Let's really rank them 1 through 82 and understand the athleticism that exists on this team. And through that, I think it should give you some clues as to some of the developmental players and, you know, what type of physical skill they have, you know, what type of upward mobility do they have in terms of just based on their athletic profile in either direction. So let's do this. Let's work through this list 1 through 82. I'll keep the line moving here and I'll let you know what tier they're in. So the first 19 players are all in the elite tier of athleticism. They are a 9.0 or higher. So number 1, Spencer Brown. 2, Von Miller. 3, Tommy Doyle. 4, Ed Oliver. 5, O.J. Howard. 6, Tremaine Edmonds. 7, Josh Allen. 8, Brandon Bryant. 9, Mitch Morse. 10, Ryan Bates. Now here comes the new names. At number 11, punter Matariza. This dude's a really good athlete for a punter. And that's a fun part of his game. Like, he makes tackles on special teams. He runs and chases and wants to hit people. He's a good athlete. Number 12, offensive lineman Tanner Owen. Number 13, defensive end Boogie Basham. That's exciting. This is an elite caliber athlete that we're hoping to break out this season in year 2 as a second-round pick last year. Number 14, Taiwan Jones, running back, an elite RAS score. That was kind of interesting because I scouted Taiwan Jones when he came out, and he was a pretty big dude and an explosive running back. And he's never made an impact at running back, but this guy's been one of the best special teamers in the NFL for a long time. At number 15, my dude, Dawson Knox, tight end. So the Bills have 2 tight ends on their roster with elite RAS scores. I'll go ahead and say it. Dawson Knox and O.J. Howard is the most athletic pair of tight ends in the NFL. And I don't think it's close. At number 16, offensive tackle David Questonberry, a new addition to the team. He has an elite caliber RAS score. 17, Shaq Lawson, defensive end. He's also in the elite bucket. So Shaq Lawson, Boogie Basham, Von Miller. The Bills have 3 elite RAS scores at the defensive end position. Number 18, Balin Spector. Number 19, Kingsley Jonathan, a defensive end out of Syracuse, UDFA this year. Balin Spector, obviously the linebacker, 7th-round pick. So those 19 players are your elite RAS score Buffalo Bills players. This next group, which will be 20 through 29, those are the great RAS score, meaning that they are above an 8. So they're 8 to 9. At number 20, Dion Dawkins. Number 21, cornerback Tim Harris. 22, linebacker Terrell Bernard. 23, running back James Cook. 24, cornerback Kyer Elam. 25, offensive lineman Roger Saffold. 26, cornerback Nick McLeod. 27, wide receiver Khalil Shakir. 28, cornerback Christian Benford. 29, defensive tackle Prince Emili. I'm pretty sure, look, and don't hold me to this. This is kind of me shooting from the hip here, but I'm pretty sure the entire Bills draft class this year was a great or higher RAS score, because I just went through, I felt like the whole draft class, James Cook, Terrell Bernard, Kyer Elam, Khalil Shakir, Christian Benford, and then I don't think there was any in the elite category, but right there, like that entire bucket, Matariza was in the elite. So you can tell Brandon Beane's looking for those top-tier athletes. He wanted to get more explosive as a football team, and he certainly did that with his draft picks. The next bucket here is the good bucket, which is a 6 to an 8 in the RAS score. Number 30, offensive tackle Derek Kerstetter. 31, defensive end Gregory Rousseau. 32, wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins. 33, linebacker Markel Lee. 34, running back Duke Johnson. 35, cornerback Saran Neal. 36, offensive lineman Will Ulmer. 37, linebacker Matt Milano. 38, safety DeMar Hamlin. 39, defensive end Mike Love. 40, wide receiver Gabriel Davis. 41, tight end Quentin Morris. 42, cornerback Tre'Davious White. 43, linebacker Tyrell Dotson. 44, Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver. Maybe you think Isaiah McKenzie should be higher. Just keep in mind he's very, very small. So if you're very, very small, you're expected to have very, very good athletic scores to be graded high in terms of relative athletic score. 45, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips. 46, defensive tackle Eli Onquo. 47, wide receiver Jake Kumaro. 48, cornerback Taron Johnson. 49, offensive lineman Cody Ford. 50, wide receiver Stefan Diggs. Stefan Diggs is a good athlete, just like his RAS score indicates, the good bucket. That's another player where technique, route running, hands, feel for the game, all of that stuff, work ethic, right? He maximizes every ounce of his physical talent. That's why he's one of the elite players in the NFL, but only has a good RAS score, the 50th most athletic player on the team. 51, cornerback Jamarcus Ingram. 52, quarterback Case Keenum. The next bucket is 53 to 64. These players have okay RAS scores. 53, Raheem Blackshear, running back. 54, linebacker Andre Smith, who recently got suspended for 6 games. We'll talk about that next week. 55, tight end Tommy Sweeney. 56, safety Jordan Poyer. Instincts, right? A guy that is technically refined, does everything the right way, works extremely hard. He has an okay RAS score, one of the best safeties in the game. 57, wide receiver Marquez Stevenson. 58, offensive lineman Ike Bucker. 59, wide receiver Tanner Gentry. 60, safety Micah Hyde. Copy paste my analysis for Jordan Poyer, insert it to Micah Hyde. 61, wide receiver Neil Powell. 62, offensive tackle Luke Tenuta. So they're when I said about the draft class, Luke Tenuta was the exception. 63, cornerback Cam Lewis. 64, cornerback Dane Jackson. The next bucket is the poor bucket. We'll get from 65 to 73 here. 65, offensive lineman Jacob Capra. 66, defensive end AJ Panesa. Keep in mind, body transformation guy. He's 20 pounds less now than when he tested, so I'm sure that's a lot higher. 67, safety Jaquan Johnson. 68, quarterback Matt Barkley. 69, defensive tackle Daquan Jones. 70, linebacker Joe Giles Harris. 71, linebacker Tyler Medikevich. 72, running back Zach Moss. And now here's that bottom 10. 73, cornerback Elijah Griffin. 74, wide receiver Malik Williams. 75, offensive tackle Bobby Hart. 76, running back Devin Singletary. 77, wide receiver Jamison Crowder. 78, cornerback Trayvon Fuller. 79, defensive tackle Tim Settle. 80, defensive end Daniel Joseph. 81, offensive lineman Alec Anderson. And 82, tight end Jalen Weidermeyer. And then 74 through 82 there is very poor in terms of RAS score. So there you have it. We talked about what RAS is. We talked about the 10 most athletic players on the team and why it matters. Talked about the 10 least athletic players on the team and why some of the more prominent names will probably, why they are able to overcome their poor athleticism to be a meaningful player for this team. And then we went through them 1 through 82. So you have the full list in terms of athleticism as it relates to the Buffalo Bills players. I certainly hope you enjoyed this. I did. Always fun to see how this all stacks up and file it away in the back of our mind as the Bills craft this roster and, hang on to certain players and move on from others. I think athleticism is a part of that decision-making process. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast and this week. I hope you enjoyed. Looking forward to next week. We have some great stuff lined up, so don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. We'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.